of it as the reader. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually look at the poem. So a good strategy for reading a poem is to read it once completely through and then read it again and look at some of those things when you're actually reading poetry. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind neither bird nor tree if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. Okay, so go ahead and let's paraphrase what was this poem literally about. And we can take it line by line. It says, there will come soft rains and the smell of the ground. Okay, so the poem opens with rain. And swallows circling with their shimmering sound. A swallow is a type of bird, and it's talking about them singing. Birds are singing. And frogs in the pools singing at night. Okay, so frogs are making noise. And wild plum trees in tremulous white. So trees are blooming. It says tremulous white. It's talking about if there's any kind of a flower on the tree that it is starting to bloom. Let's say trees are blooming. Robins will wear their feathery fire. Okay, we have more birds whistling their whims on a low fence fire, more birds singing, and not one will know of the war. Not one will care at last when it is done. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop there. The poem opens with rains, birds are singing, frogs are making noise, and trees are blooming. Good. But now we've shifted to something else. It says, not one will know of the war. First of all, who is the one that they're talking about? They just talked about birds, they talked about frogs, they talked about trees, they talked about rain. And if you remember, the theme of the week is nature. Okay, so when it says not one, it's talking about nature collectively. Not one will know of the war. Not one will care at last when it is done. Okay, so we can put down that literally there was a war and it ended. Okay, not one would mind neither bird nor tree if mankind perished utterly. Okay, so when it says perished utterly, it means that all of mankind is gone. All the humans died, probably died in the war. Don't know what else they would have died. All the humans died, and nature did not care. Okay, because it says they would not mind if everybody died. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. And then we have spring would continue. It says she's going to wake at dawn. Everybody else died except for spring. And she's unaffected that humans are gone. Okay, so that's literally what the poem is about. All right, so let's look at words and phrases in the poems that have some kind of meaning that we associate with. The one that jumps out to me is the word war. Okay. All you have to do here is tell me what do you associate with the word war. And the reason I chose the word war is because it really contrasts with the first three stanzas of the poem. We have soft rains, birds, trees, robins, and then we have war. Okay, so when I think of all this rain and nature and trees, I think of like the opening of a Disney movie and not so much war unless you're talking about Mulan. Okay, so what do you associate with war? Destruction, death, fighting, And this is what I associate with the word war. You can put down what you associate with the word war because the author knows that she'll conjure up different images for different readers. And the last thing that I'm going to put though is humans, because nature cannot have a war. While we might see some violence in nature, we don't see wars in nature. Okay. And then I also the words perished utterly stands out because it's kind of a nice way to say that everyone has killed each other. Okay. And I think it's interesting that she just says the war, as in it's the last war, obviously, because everyone has died. So it's kind of an eerie feeling that a poet would be writing about a war that kills everybody. Okay. So let's look at the next part. What is the speaker's attitude towards her subject? The most obvious subject of this poem is nature, right? We have the birds, the trees, the frogs, the rain, spring, okay? How does she feel about nature? Well, she writes about it in a positive or negative way. She says they're shimmering sound, talks about the smell of a ground, singing at night, tremulous white, white often being a symbolic color of innocence and purity, feathery fire, and birds singing. Okay, so when you talk about nature, how does the author describe nature? Do they describe it in a positive way or a negative way? Obviously, she seems to like nature. She describes it in a positive way. She talks about nature carrying on without humans. I would say that the author truly admires nature and respects nature. Okay. Then, but there's also, because there is this mention of the war, she brings up another subject in this poem, which would be humans, okay, and what their place in nature might be. So, do we get the sense that the author has the same admiration to humans as she did nature? No. And how do we know that? Because she says they all die. Okay. So I would say that her attitude towards humans is more of a criticism. Okay. You can look up a list of tone words to help you really identify what the tone is if you struggle with this, but the easiest way to do it is to start off with, is it positive or negative, and then narrow it down from there. Okay. I've mentioned this already a couple of times, so I think it's a little bit more obvious, but what shifts are in the poem? Well, we have these first three lines, first three stanzas talking about nature, and then it shifts to war. Okay. And it says, and not one will know of the war. So that's the major shift in the poem. So we're going to write it down. Okay, that's line, this is 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it is a shift in tone, it's a shift in the subject matter, and it also helps bring up the theme because it's not just about nature, it's about nature and humans interacting. Okay, next part, title, re-examine the title of the poem for a deeper meaning. Was your prediction accurate? You need to go back to whatever you put, first of all, you need to tell me, was your prediction accurate? Okay. And you need to tell me what's the deeper meaning of the poem. Why would she decide to name her poem There Will Come Soft Rains? Well, let's think about this for a second. It's like there's a saying, the rain will wash away the woes of yesterday, and you get to start clean. The woes of yesterday is this war that the humans had. So it's basically saying after this war, there will come rain to wash away the destructions that humans created, if that makes sense. So it just harks back on that saying, rains wash away bad feelings, destruction, and start the new process of recovery. It's kind of like when a human cries and they're like, oh, I feel better. And then they move on with the next phase. All right. What is the theme or the message of the poem? This needs to be one complete sentence. And theme is best expressed with topic plus insight equals theme. So our topic or our subject was nature and humans. Okay, so let's think. Nature and humans. What is she trying to say about natures and humans? I think you could say that humans, while destructive by nature, will never completely wipe away nature. Nature will always win. Okay. All right, so that's the basic idea of how to do a TPCAS analysis. After you can, if I've wrote something down here, then you can go ahead and write it down. You need to answer these questions by yourself. Okay. This one asks you, it says, read the stanza aloud. Notice that it has a rhymed couplet. Couplet just means that there's two lines. Okay, like a couple. Record the rhyme scheme in the first chart. What expectations are set up by this end rhyme? Meaning, if these first two words rhyme, then I would expect the rest of the words to rhyme. That's what expectation I have. Reread lines 1 through 6. Identify the author's use of alliteration and chart it in your graphic organizer. That's that sound device chart on the front page of your sheet. In lines 1 through 12, what differences can you identify between Tisdale, that's the author's portrayal of nature, and her portrayal of humankind? Okay, we've talked about this, so you need to answer that on your own. Have you ever felt insignificant, small in the face of nature, like standing in front of the ocean? Lots of people say it makes them feel small. You need to answer that question on your own. One complete sentence. At what point in the poem does the imagery seem to shift? We talked about that, so go ahead and refer to your TPCAS chart to answer that question. Okay, tomorrow you'll get 2 more videos over the other 2 poems, but you can go ahead and start to look at them on your own. Okay.